I think as soon as the individual starts to put themselves first, victory is assured, and you should have the confidence that you are going to be better off than everybody else.
Hey guys, thanks so much for taking the time to click play. Certainly do appreciate it. And I know Duane, my buddy from SilverShieldXchange.com, also appreciates it. And Chris is back on the line with us right now. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a while, and I appreciate catching up with you.
Well, I appreciate catching up with you. It's been far too long, and I figured since it's Super Bowl Sunday, I figured you and I should talk a little bit about some truth, huh?
Yeah. I did a couple every year. I usually do. While you were watching the Super Bowl, you could have been, learning about the Federal Reserve or the military-industrial complex, or the poison in our vaccines and food, and why cancer is rampant, and why autism is growing, and the war on drugs, why our troops are protecting opium fields, and why banks like HSBC are laundering money, and all these unsettling things that people, if they saw how the world really would work, probably would save them from poverty and despair and depression, and a lot of other things, unsettled things that are really keeping humanity from rising to its highest and best self. And yet, it's far easier for people to just baa along in the fields, wondering why things aren't working right, and to spend so much time and energy on such childish things like the Super Bowl. Is a perfect example of why this country is a mess, why it will suffer, and why future generations will look back and not wonder why we collapsed, why we failed so bad. When grown men are prancing around the field and worshipped for poor sports behavior, for dirty tricks and stuff like that, and why millions upon millions of people are spending so much time, energy, and money into such frivolity, when there's so much real pain and suffering that could have been averted if people just paid attention.
Yeah, and as the head of a household with children, it just occurs to me that, hey, it's okay to enjoy football. I'm a Packer fan, and they almost made it to the Super Bowl, but it is not the core of my life, nor is it the core of my kids' life. I mean, football is something that can be enjoyed, and I think kids can learn from it, a sense of teamwork, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of leadership, a sense of all of those things that come from sports, but it does not have to define us as human beings. And I think so many people, so many men I know, really identify themselves with sports. Their life is defined by sports. And that, I think, is what you're talking about. It's kind of sad because those guys don't know a lot about the Federal Reserve. They don't know anything about central banking. They don't know anything about the history of the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, those who are in control, really, of the information systems, the news systems, the distribution systems. Everything these guys digest comes from corporate media controlled by these banksters. And I guess if we just circle back to the Super Bowl quickly before getting off that
And it's even
topic.
bigger than that, Sean. It's not even that they identify themselves by sports and stuff. They don't know who they are. The very fact that they went through the indoctrination of school, where they were basically told to, only taught to, listen to directions and follow orders and not ask questions, to regurgitate dead facts onto a test, without any logical thinking involved in it, to go out and to get into groupthink, which I think football does a great job of getting people to, essentially sacrifice the individual for the collective to get the ball across the field. Those type things are tools into getting the individual to, sacrifice themselves to a collective, whether it's a football team, a school, a college, a corporation. And these are the things that are where people are dying, these little deaths every day, because they're not releasing. I think the sole purpose of every individual is to find out what makes them tick, what makes them happy, and to release whatever special gifts and talents you may have, and then out onto the world. And school doesn't do that. The corporations, colleges don't do that. Your corporate job doesn't do that. Any collective group doesn't want you to become who you are. And I think that's why so many people, passively accept, rah-rahing for their local sports team, mainly because they don't cheer for themselves. They're not empowering themselves on a daily basis. And that's the ultimate sadness about all of this, is that, these men, these women, these kids grow up never knowing who they are or what special gifts they have that they could have been released. and it's literally like having a hell. Like you never find out who you are, and you get to the end of the line, and it's too late for you to do anything about it. So I just released a little 2-minute video on the greatest truth never told, telling people, like, what's your Super Bowl? What are you cheering for? What are you, getting ready for every single day? Are you working out? Are you eating better? Are you reading? Are you doing something special for you? Not to, play into some sort of collective and feeling good about that. What are you doing to improve yourself? And I think ultimately that's the key to humanity, not only to avoid ourselves from this coming collective collapse and these collectivist problems that are coming down the road. Strong individuals are going to be the ones that lift up those around us, and that's the only way out I see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that the systems of control include sporting events like this. I mean, we know that to be true. We know the history of these things, but I'm nodding my head too because I love to run. I run 20 to 24 miles a week. It's so important to be in shape. It's so important to think about nutrition. It's so important to make the choices that make us better, stronger individuals so that we can really withstand this barrage of propaganda and this barrage of unhealthiness that the system throws at us, from GMO foods to vaccines to so many negative things that are meant to hurt us as human beings. Hey, before we talk about humanity's battle against the banksters and what's going on in Greece, I just want to tie up this Super Bowl talk with this one little nugget. It's funny that you can actually talk about silver and the Super Bowl together, and here's how you do it. Did you know that the silver content in this year's Vince Lombardi trophy, Chris, is 7 pounds of sterling, which is 95 ounces of pure silver? I found that out from my buddy Jeff, who sent me an article from Agora. How much would that be worth if silver were trading fairly, Chris?
Oh, it'd probably be 1,000 days worth of hard human labor. That's what I would equate it out to. If you figure a 10th ounce dime, a denarius, a dime equated throughout all of history and even 2/3 of the world today as a day's worth of hard human labor. So I think that's a wonderful trophy. Unfortunately, it's kind of cheap right now, and it's probably not prized for how the metal content, and more so for the accomplishment that goes around it.
That's true. And what I think is interesting, Chris, is that silver's performance year to date, at least at one point in this month, silver was up 18% and was the best performing financial asset of the year until the cartel knocked it down, I believe, on Thursday. Wasn't silver down about $1 on Thursday?
Yeah, $1.20,
Yeah.
which I believe was the last day for futures positions or something along those lines. It's obvious that at the end of every month, whenever these future or option contracts come due, they make a paper attack on it, and you look for follow through, and there really wasn't much. So, I think they gave it a little shot, threw it out, and then we'll probably have another couple weeks of it going back up again. But I'm looking at this. We're entering in close to 4 years, from when it topped out, and actually we're coming up on the anniversary, 4-year anniversary of when I wrote the Silver Bullet, Silver Shield. So this has been a long, drawn out time period, and what has me hopeful, even before the rise earlier this year, was the disconnect between the dollar, gold, and silver. So we know that silver's been down for close to 4 years, and gold's been down for a little over 3.5 years. But the dollar has been getting dramatically stronger since last summer. And as the dollar got stronger, gold and silver were still descending. Up until November, though, that there was a strong correlation now where gold and silver were rising in terms of dollars. And that, to me, is extremely bullish because the dollar was the best performing currency of all other currencies out there. Gold was very close, but ever since November, now the dollar is rising against all other currencies. Gold and silver are now rising in dollar terms. And this is my new theory is that, and when I first got involved in silver, I really thought the dollar index was going to fall to 40, and that would lead to the rise of gold and silver. And yet, what I now am coming to the conclusion is that the dollar is the strongest, deepest, most liquid paper asset out there. And as we do this kind of reverse Exeter's pyramid of liquidity and safety, I think people are going to rush from less liquid, more risky assets into stronger stock markets, stronger bond markets, stronger currencies, in a way of rushing to safety. And since most people and bankers and hedge fund operators and pension funds, they're paper asset biased. They don't really get the whole gold and silver story. They're rushing for the most liquid and safest, and I'm using air quotes, asset, which is the U.S. dollar. And so while I'm watching all these other currencies, hyperinflate in some cases. You look at what Venezuela and Argentina, Russia, Belarus, all these countries are going through. There's some, not quite hyperinflations, but very strong inflations that are occurring. Those currencies are in the process of dying. And, the dollar is becoming relatively stronger. And I think we're going to talk about Greece and the euro. The main reason why the dollar is going up is because 56% of the dollar index is measured in euros. And, the euro is not what it once was, even 3 years ago, and looks like it could be on the verge of really blowing up February. So you have all these people rushing around trying to get out of, paper assets and stock markets and stuff. And by default, the ugliest duckling out there, but the biggest whale is the dollar. But I think this is leading to once the dollar starts getting hurt relative to all these other assets, because now the dollar's been rising for so long, and it's due for a quick downdraft. I think that's when gold and silver are really going to start taking off, because it is, or they are, the premier currency. I mean, even Alan Greenspan said that to the Council on Foreign Relations, and you're going to see this one last final rush, because we're no longer talking about corporate problems anymore like we did in 2008. These are major sovereign nations with hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, Greece has $300 billion worth of debt. It's astounding. Anybody who's been to Greece knows that this is not a very industrialized, productive country. And to have that much debt, I think these guys have a lot of problems. And I think, watch the dollar, watch these other currencies, and most importantly, watch your gold and silver.
Yeah, what a great segue to Greece, Chris. I wanted to talk to you about the election there. The new majority party, Syriza, and their guy, Yanis Varoufakis, is now in charge. And he was just a pundit, a favorite economist.
He's a blogger, just like you and me.
Yeah, he's a blogger, and it has to have the powers that be really shaking in their boots and upset and probably planning some pretty nefarious stuff. So I think anybody who cares about humanity and the people of Greece ought to say a prayer for Giannis. And this comes from Zero Hedge via the Automatic Earth blog. Let me quote this. If Giannis and Alexis want to get anywhere, they'll need to take on Wall Street and its international, American, French, German, too big to fail banks and primary dealers. And if there's one thing those guys don't like, it's democracy. It's going to be a bloody battle, and it hasn't even started yet. But kudos to all Greeks for starting it. It has to be done, and I don't see how the euro could possibly survive it. The EU and the New World Order and this whole Ponzi scheme worldwide is somewhat fragile and at risk now because of what's going on in Greece, don't you think?
Well, I think your prayers are probably going to be wasted on them, considering I know Alex is at least an atheist and refused to swear in on the Bible. Both of them are very well spoken, young, people who have risen to power in a very precarious situation. And my wife's family is, Greek, obviously, and they still have a lot of family over there. And I don't think Americans truly appreciate how much the Greek people have suffered over the last 5 years. Um, we were over there, I think, in 2004, and there was a lot of construction for the Olympics. But the last couple of years, I mean, they've had riots. I think the youth unemployment rate's over 50%. The young people are actually leaving the country because there's just no hope there. The bankers have performed all sorts of austerity, and I just remind people austerity has nothing to do with making the country stronger. It has everything to do with making the bankers' notes perform at the expense of humanity. But I am not going to go as far as to say that Varoufakis and Tsipras are these people to be admired, or even or a solution. I watched Yanni Varoufakis do a 15-minute interview with BBC, and he is very well spoken. He's very charming. He's got a good sense about him. But what I come back to is that if somebody can describe a problem better than the audience can, the audience tends to think that they know what the answer is and will follow them anywhere. And so he's very good at describing the problem. I mean, you cannot have the situation where a country like Greece has $300 billion worth of debt, that the assets that are being sold to help pay for this debt are probably the assets that would have helped them get out of it, the productive assets that are being sold at a deflationary um, pennies on the dollar to all these bankers out there who are raping the countryside of Greece.
Right.
But their solutions are not are not free market based. They're socialists. They're allied with communists, and I don't think America quite understands. These people are real about this. Like when I went there, I mean, there was hammers and sickle graffiti all over Greece, and this is not some new Greek Republic and great orators that are coming forth speaking logic and monetary policy. They want to raise the minimum wage. They want to rehire all these people, but with what money? That's what's not going to end up happening. So they have basically 4 weeks to look great. And then the reality is going to hit hard for them, because if the Greek people or if this new government doesn't go along with whatever the EU wants, the bankers are going to shut off the money, and because they're not going to go backwards. They just, even from a monetary policy, the money's not the problem with these guys. It's the confidence of the game. They can't give in to Greece, because then Germany and the EU and the IMF have nowhere to stand with Spain, which is a bigger problem, with Italy, with France. So they have to play strong ball here, and they would assume let them devolve down into a further greater depression, the riots, the poverty, the starving that's going to go on, and probably let Greece go their way. What's that going to do? It's going to give these young, charismatic guys the emotional victory of throwing the Greeks out. Who knows how they're going to spin it? They may go back to the drachma. And what's that? What are they going to end up doing? They're going to hyperinflate that away, like you see down in Venezuela. There's no good solution. There's no good problem in this. They can't continue to go down this road of taking out more credit cards to pay the mortgage, on this $300 billion, which is an obscene amount of money. And it's not that the Greek people are in trouble. It's the bankers. I mean,
Right.
if you owe the bank $1 million, you're probably in trouble. But if you owe the bank $300 billion, the bankers are in trouble. Just to kind of bring this all full circle, there's no solution over there. I mean, I spent almost an hour talking to my wife's uncle out there, who's an American citizen who fought in Vietnam and moved out there with his wife. He's watching this going, I don't get how people like, Cyprus gets into power. And I said, well, when people suffer long enough, they'll believe anybody who gives them a good story. And that's what I fear that these guys are doing. They're giving them a good story. And we're going to see in the coming months how dangerous this gamble is. And unfortunately, there's no other way out. I mean, they cannot capitulate to these bankers. Greece is probably not going to be able to stand on its own with the drachma. There's too many structural problems that are going on there, and it's going to be hard times for Greece. And this is just a foreshadowing of what the entire world is going to go through when this Ponzi scheme ends.
Yeah, I think you're right. The one thing I'd say, though, about Varoufakis is that, correct me if you think I'm wrong, at least he's taking the approach that he's not Draghi's water boy. He's not a water boy for Goldman Sachs. He's anti-austerity. He's anti-banking austerity. He's anti-IMF. And I think what I hear you saying is that your fear is he's a collectivist, and that's certainly no solution, but at least he's not carrying the water for Goldman Sachs. At least he's not pro-austerity, right?
Yeah, but I mean that's the it's literally back to the same Hegelian dialectic of
Right.
the Russian socialists versus the fascist Germans and them fighting over each other. It's the same game, and it's, again, they're both collectivists. They're both wrong. And the only thing I can tell people is, stop cheering, stop voting, stop banking in there. It's the same thing I started with my coins and all this stuff is there's only individual conscious solutions to these unconscious collectivist problems that are plaguing humanity. And while it's good to watch the mile markers and see how things are progressing and kind of get a fix on, make sure that you're traveling the right way, there's no collective solution to this collectivist problem. Only individuals walking away, becoming self-empowered, getting their money and capital outside of the banking system, especially with gold and silver. Becoming, concentrating on your real friends and building a community and becoming stronger yourself. That's the only way out. There is no collectivist solution. Nobody's coming to save you.
We've known each other a long time, Chris, and I've come to the conclusion that sadly you're right. Nobody is coming to save us. It won't be Ron Paul. I'm not exactly sure how to take this thing back from the banksters and the evil people that are in control of our own government, other than to hope that this paradigm collapses out from under them so that they can't continue to fund these wars, and they can't continue to fund the police state at home, and they can't continue to fund the fascist tyranny that has really enveloped Western society. That's our greatest hope, is that it collapses under its own weight.
It is. Nature will take over. The universe has a very unique way of knocking things down that get out of control and bringing balance, and that's what we need. We need a collapse. I know this is a hard lesson to learn, but we need it. If you want to end these wars, if you want to end this police state, if you want to end this oligarchy, I mean, geez, 86 people own as much wealth as 3 billion people. That cannot be sustained. And the only way that this is going to end, and I hate to get all biblical on here because I know a lot of people are, not into religion, but I am a definitely spiritual person. But there's a part of the Bible that says, for a rich man to enter into heaven would be as difficult as a camel to go through the needle of a pin or a needle.
The eye of a needle, right.
And that's what this is going to be like. Because if you think about the wealthy in this world, they're all into these paper assets. Every single paper asset's counterparty risk. That's valuation is dependent upon debt and debt that has been built up for generations. When that all ends, all of it's going to end. Apple stock will be worth nothing. No one will care about what the latest iPhone is because they're going to be more concerned about their local safety and getting food in their mouth than these billions of dollars that we're wasting buying these gadgets from slaves made out in China. And what will happen is power will devolve down to the most local and responsive level. Those people who have real tangible wealth, real friends, real skills, and real assets will be the foundation for many different local communities that will then pick up from the ashes. Humanity will continue on. I think it's going to surprise people how the world's going to look pretty much exactly the same, but the operating system that had been funding this whole thing is going to crash horribly and never come back. And I think that's when I'm hopeful that in my own personal experiences, the most difficult times in my life were the times that I grew the most. And humanity's most difficult time is coming, and my hope is after all the flames burn out, after all the the lamentation and self abuse that a lot of people are going to go through, and the riots and all that other stuff. My hope is that a new consciousness will be born out of the ashes, and we will see a golden age of humanity on the other side of this, because we will have this quickening of knowledge, this necessity of getting things right for the future for our next generation, instead of this horrible system that we have set up that indebts our children with $1.3 trillion worth of useless college loans that cannot never be gotten rid of. That's limiting these kids' abilities to produce families and buy homes and be productive in this world. This all will end, and I really believe that on the other side of this, something good will come out of it. And it won't be for everybody, but I'm certain that the people who start taking positive, productive action in their everyday lives to become a stronger individual, more independent from the system, will be the ones that lead that way.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I hope you're right. You said that this current division of wealth, with less than 100 people controlling really more than half the world's wealth, is unsustainable. I hope you're right. I've got an interview that will be coming out later in the week here with Andrew Johnson from checktheevidence.com, in which we talk about the breakaway civilization that Catherine Austin Fitts has talked about, and we talk about suppressed energy technologies. We talk about a lot of interesting things. I think people will enjoy the interview. I just hope that humanity is able to stand up strong and fast enough to take the power back from what I think at this point is a breakaway civilization. The folks at the top of the pyramid are really up to some nefarious things, and I think that they've harnessed a lot of technology they're not sharing with humanity. And I agree with you, Chris, but it's going to be a long, hard battle, isn't it?
No, I think as soon as the individual starts to put themselves first, victory is assured, and you should have the confidence that you are going to be better off than everybody else. And I think it's not even a question about how victory can be assured. There will be no collective humanity, quote unquote, solution to this. But I tell you what, the individual that starts, doing what you're doing, running as much as you are, and eating healthy, and concentrating on the real people in your life that you resonate with, and not putting up with liars or psychopaths, or people that you might work with, these are the people I think are guaranteed victory. I mean, this is not a difficult decision. I think the most difficult thing is getting off the collectivist drug thinking, thinking that somebody's coming to save you, or fearing, that they're more powerful than you. No one is more powerful than a self-determined individual, and that is the message that I want to leave people with today.
I love it. All right. We'll leave with the cup half full, and I really appreciate that perspective. Can you tell people what you're up to with your series of coins, and tell us a little bit about SilverShieldXchange? Because we want to support you. I want folks to support you. I want folks to realize there's an alternative to eBay. There's an alternative. Tell them about SilverShieldXchange.com.
Yeah, I mean, SilverShieldXchange was basically brought out of the unbelievable. I couldn't get over how much money people were blowing on eBay. I mean, between the 10% eBay fees and the 3% PayPal fees, and then if you want to load in extra photos or actually have a reserve on your thing, I mean, these things can get up to 15%. And I kept thinking, like, how do these coin guys do that? Like, the profit margins aren't that big on precious metals. So I worked with two other programmers, them, to develop the SilverShieldXchange, and it's just the lowest cost, most viable option out there. Unfortunately, it's not available outside the United States, but at least it's something. And I'm all about creating my own solutions. As far as the Silver Shield collection, I just released a new one called Year of the Sheep, and it's a very conscious, shocking design of two wolves eating a sheep. And unfortunately, 2015 might be that year where all these people who are blindly watching the Super Bowl today, and blindly going off to their corporate jobs, and blindly saving their 401k, and blindly moving along thinking like everything's going to end this way, those are the ones that are going to get, unfortunately, eaten by the wolves out there, who are going to take advantage of these people. You can look no further than what's going on with Greece for a future that is most likely coming to us. So that's about it. And also, I'm still plugging ahead on my turning out to be a very lengthy novel called A Decade of Denial and Deception. I probably have 100,000 words written, and I'm only maybe a third of the way through this novel that I have in my head. So I will put out this, epic War and Peace like opposite consciousness novel, hopefully, soon. But I'm still plugging away at it.
Wow. Well, you're an enterprising guy, Chris, and a good friend. Guys, please check out SilverShieldXchange.com, and any other websites. Truth Never Told. Anything else you want to call out?
No, actually, the whole purpose of this year is to get everything on SilverShieldXchange.com, because I realized that I kept doing all these different things and making new websites, and then people just were like, I don't know where to find you anymore, man. Like, you're just doing so many things. So, I'm trying to get more focused in my energy, because I realize we're getting closer and closer to the end. So I've really been plowing ahead with this book, because I think that, so much of the work, unfortunately, that you and I do are really reaching out to the choir and people who are probably already get this and just need that constant reinforcement. But to me, it's been television, movies, and novels that really reach out to audiences that are beyond what we're normally reaching. And that's my whole point with this novel that I'm working on.
Well, very good, Chris. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Sean, so much. I visit your site probably more than any other site out there. So please keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. And guys, thanks for tuning into SGTReport.com and the LibertyMill.com. Real news, truthful news, 24/7. Have a great week. Thanks, Chris.
All right, take care.
All right, be good.
All right, bye.
See you, bye.